These made these trials very complex, very lengthy, very costly, and now I think it has set a very important precedent for other cases like this as they come through. But my own caution, just looking on, I think perhaps they should, really go after the strong cases, for the main targets that they're after, and try and limit the numbers in these gangs, the number of defendants that they bring. Criminals, for their own convenience, associate themselves with politics. And you know that there have been shootings at public meetings of the JLP in Montego Bay, at their conference at the arena. So the JLP has that issue, and the PNP undoubtedly has that issue. But what I can tell you is that we give no comfort, seek no association or common cause with any criminal organization.
And certainly, in this case, we saw a very good synergy in respect of the component parts of what makes up the prosecution. That is, the investigators and the prosecutors. There were many, many late nights in terms of talking, collaborating, reviewing material as between the prosecutors and the police task force, and not to mention, I have to mention, the witnesses, because this was a case where the credibility of the Crown's case really rested on the two cooperating witnesses who had been former members of the gang. It is very unfortunate that apart from maybe one civilian witness, we did not have anybody, even persons to even identify the bodies of the murdered victims, apart from one.
Chief Justice Brian Sykes was adamant he would complete the final announcement of verdicts in the historic ongoing Clansman gang trial. While insufficient evidence provided some with not guilty verdicts, others were not so fortunate.
The final remaining charge in the Clansman gang trial, count 2, being a member of a criminal organization. The once supposed Don of Lawrencetown, Daniel Mackenzie, received the day's first not guilty verdict and was ordered to be freed by Chief Justice Brian Sykes on the basis of lack of sufficient evidence. But this luck did not extend to Michael Whiteley, who was found guilty. The Chief Justice says he accepts witness testimonies against Whiteley, as he reminds the court of his name being mentioned repeatedly by the witnesses in connection with several serious offenses. In the case of Dylan McLean, Sykes agrees with the witness that McLean was personally known to the gang's leader, Andre Blackman Bryan. McLean's name previously came up in relation to the fisheries incident, and with that, he was found guilty for being a member. Meanwhile, an elated Dwight Hall gave a thumbs up when Sykes announced his not guilty verdict. Since his other counts previously fell, he now walks away a free man. Family man Lamar Simpson could not escape a guilty verdict, as Sykes accepts witness testimonies which place Simpson at incriminating locations. Meanwhile, the once alleged extortion boss Donovan Richards heard a not guilty verdict and now walks free after also escaping charges on count 6. The court was again reminded that Tariq James was a key player in Outlaw's murder and has been found guilty. Meanwhile, the sole woman, Stephanie Muma Christie, was also found guilty after Sykes did a detailed analysis of her role in the organization. Sykes says she is the link between the police force and the gang. Fabian Johnson, known more commonly for expressing the desire to, quote, take off Dooleyhead and bring it back to Blackman, end quote, was also found guilty. Kamar Harrison also heard not guilty, as Sykes believes nothing indicates his part in any nefarious activity. He now walks free, since his charge on count 5 previously fell. Joseph McDermott prides himself as being a religious man who wouldn't commit such offenses, but that didn't stop Judge Sykes from providing a guilty verdict. Former JDF member Jermaine Robinson also heard a guilty verdict. Meanwhile, despite hearing a not guilty verdict, Jason Brown will remain incarcerated to serve a life sentence for the murder of accused members Pete and Marco Miller's father. Meanwhile, Marco Miller now joins his brother Pete Miller as a free man following his not guilty verdict on count 2. Chevrolet Evans was also found not guilty since Sykes says he was not satisfactorily identified by the witness. So too was the fate for Ricardo Morris, who was pointed out as a top shooter, but insufficient evidence sets him free. Ted Prince and Brian Morris were also found guilty. Now only 15 of the initial 33 members await sentencing, which is scheduled for July 3, 2023.
Chief Justice Brian Sykes took over an hour to analyze the volume of evidence presented against the woman known inside the one-done Clansman gang as Mama. The former gangster turned state witness said Christie has provided support to several of the gang members who had run-ins with the police. He said if a gangster was held by the police, she would get someone to post bail or a lawyer to intervene. In one instance, the witness said he overheard the convicted leader of the gang, Andre Blackman Bryan, asking Christie if she had gotten the bail a man. There were several recordings of conversations with Christie's voice, which Justice Sykes said are consistent with the witness's claim. Justice Sykes said all the evidence cumulatively shows her role and function in the organization. There was also evidence from a police witness concerning Christie. The police said at one point she offered him $100,000 to release the gang leader from custody. The police said he asked her for 2 rifles instead, and she said that was the least. Justice Sykes says such a narrative would be consistent with the evidence of Christie being the face of the organization to interact with the police. Other evidence was presented which implicated Christie in the planning of setting fire to 2 building housing loan companies. Christie, who listened attentively, folded her arms and had a nonchalant air during the examination of evidence against her.
The notorious Clansman gang trial started in September of 2021. Since then, a myriad of testimonies from state, citizen and law enforcement witnesses called to the stand unfolded horrifyingly detailed information regarding the gang's operations. More than a year later, 15 of the initial 33 members have been handed a guilty verdict by the Chief Justice Brian Sykes.
15 remain, 17 acquitted, 1 dead, in what remains the largest gang trial in Jamaica and the Caribbean. The trial, which started with 33 accused members of the St. Catherine-based Clansman gang, concluded its verdict phase Wednesday, as those convicted await sentencing. They have been convicted on varying charges of facilitating a serious offense, murder, conspiracy to murder, arson, illegal possession of firearm and ammunition, and being a member of a criminal organization. The prosecution's case against the vicious gang was strongly based and centered around the sole testimonies and effort of 2 former gang members turned state witnesses. Their testimonies were instrumental in the verdict phase, as Chief Justice Brian Sykes relied heavily on the details they provided about the members and the illegal activities they carried out, such as the purchasing of guns, extortion, arson, and the repeated instances of murder across the breadth of the parish. The convicted Clansman members to be sentenced in July are gang leader Andre Blackman Bryan, the sole woman Stephanie Muma Cole Christie, Michael Whiteley, Dylan McLean, Lamar Simpson, Tariq James, Fabian Johnson, Jazeel Blake, Roel Taylor, Joseph McDermott, Jermaine Robinson, Andre Golding, Tomrick Taylor, Brian Morris, and Ted Prince. Meanwhile, the 17 acquitted were Jason Brown, brothers Marco and Pete Miller, Ricardo Thomas, Carl Beach, Chevrolet Evans, Kemar Harrison, Donovan Richards, Dwight Hall, Daniel McKenzie, Khalifa Williams, Kevon Green, Damani Elliston, Rashane Williams, Rivaldo Hilton, Owen Ormsby, and Dwayne Salmon. One accused, Andre Smith, who was out on bail during the trial, was murdered in August 2022. The sentencing period begins July 3, 2023.